Hey guys, Sim Review here. This is part of the interview on characters coming to life. So, how much did you know about Jacob and his future whenever you were writing Twilight? Jacob was an afterthought. He wasn't supposed to exist in the original story. When I wrote the second half of Twilight, the first there was no Jacob character. He started to exist at the point where I hit a bit of a wall. I could not make Edward say the words, "I'm a vampire," and there's no way that was ever coming out of his mouth. He couldn't do it. And there's no going back to what we were talking about with characters. He has been keeping the truth about himself a secret for so long. It was something he was so unhappy about and devastated about. He would have never been able to tell her. And that's how I thought, how is Bella ever going to figure this out? So I picked Forks already as a story location. And then I thought, these people have been around for a while and been in this area. Have they left track footprints somewhere that she discovered an older story to give her insight? And then I discovered that there was a little reservation of Quileute Indians on the coastline. I was interested in them before I even knew I was going to work them into the story. I thought, oh, that's interesting. There's a real dense and different kind of history here. I've always been fascinated with Native American history, and this was a story I've never heard before. This is about a very small tribe, and it's really not that well known, and their language is different from everyone else's, and they have great legends, even those similar to Noah's Ark stories. The Quileutes tied their canoes to the tops of tallest trees so they wouldn't be swept away in the big flood, and I thought that was really interesting. And they have a wolf legend, the story that goes that they're descended from wolves. A magician changed the first Quileute from a wolf into a man, and that's how it began. And when I was reading about the legend, I thought, that's kind of funny, because I know werewolf people and vampires don't get along at all, and how funny it is that there's a story right here next to where I was setting up my vampire story. That's so cool, kind of serendipitous for that to happen in storytelling. It felt like that. Now it's on. Now I know how it has to be. What's kismet happened is Jacob was born as a device, really, to tell Bella what she needs to know. And yet, as soon as I gave him life, and he gave me a chance to open his mouth, I just found him so endearing, and he took on this personality that was so funny and easy, and you love the characters you don't have to work for. And Jacob was not an ounce of work. He just came to life and was exactly what I needed him to be. And I enjoyed I enjoyed him as a person. But he appears in chapter 6 was really it. And that was all of the story. And then my agent loved this Jacob, and she's never gotten over that. She was a 100% Team Jacob all the time. What a world would be if we didn't knew all these legends around us are absolutely real. Laughs. And I am too. I love Jacob. Oh, I love Jacob too. So my agent said, I want some more of him. I thought, I would love to do that, but I don't want to mess with this too much. I wanted to have my editor's input before I started making major changes, and my editor felt the same way. I like this. You are going somewhere with this wolf story. So when I started the sequel, I knew there was going to be werewolves in it. Sorry. Because it seemed like all these stories are pure fantasy and myth are coming true for Bella. And then there's Jacob. Here's this world that he's just thinks is silly superstition, and then I thought, what if it was all real? What if everything he just takes for granted is actually 100% based in fact? What a world it would be if we knew all these little legends around us were absolutely real. I can't imagine being able to wrap my mind around that. And so I knew that I had a sequel already in the start and would find out about the werewolves, and it wasn't New Moon who was closer to Breaking Dawn, because the story had originally skipped beyond high school fairly quickly. But my editor liked that I keep the story in high school because the marketing of the first book is this way. And I feel like there's so much that must happen that we miss. And if we skip Bella to being grown up. And I said, well, I could always make my characters talk more. That's not a problem. Let's go back and have this kind of stuff happen earlier. So I had a chance to develop it. But by the time I got to Breaking Dawn, the characters were so fleshed out, and their allegiance were so strong to whatever they hated or loved, that it made the story just a whole lot richer when it came to the second time, because there was so much more to the backstory to it. I have to go back to the point. Jacob exists because of Edward. I couldn't say I'm a vampire. So Edward is created a necessity for Jacob. Just as Edward's existence and the nearest as vampires made Jacob into a werewolf, I just think it's interesting, those two characters who are for some friends and sometimes not enemies can't seem to live without each other. They're completely born from each other. Jacob's born from Edward also because I guess you have to say it's a flaw, Edward's inability to be honest about the essential fact of himself, although it's understandably flawed. It's something that he's supposed to keep a secret, and it wasn't something that was supposed to be said every day in passive conversation. By the way, laughs, I'm a vampire. It's just not the normal thing. Jacob's character also became the answer to the deflections in Edward, because Edward's not perfect. Okay. There were things about him that didn't make him the most perfect boyfriend in the whole world. I mean, there's some things in him that make him an amazing boyfriend, but in others they're lacking, and Jacob's sort of the alternative. You have Edward, someone who overthinks everything, who's very emotional, who is outright and tortures himself. And then there's so much angst because he's never come to terms with what he is. And then here's Jacob, someone who's never given anything a passing thought and is just happy-go-lucky. If something goes wrong, well, okay, let's just get over it and move on. Here's someone who's able to take things in stride a little bit more, who doesn't overthink everything. Someone who's a little rash. He just seems foolish sometimes because he doesn't pause to think before he leaps. That's sort of the opposite of Edward's character in a lot of ways. I gave balance to the story and a choice for Bella because I think she needed that. There was an option for her to choose a different life with someone that she could have had loved, or someone who she does love. It always felt like that was really necessary to the story, because when I write, I try to make the characters react in the best way I think people would. I think that in reality, I'd never one boy, and then there's a moment, where there's a choice, and it's really hard. Romantic relationships are tangled, and it's a messy thing. You never know what to expect. People are surprising. Red text says, I think that in reality it's never one boy. There's never a moment when it's the choice. It seems sometimes it's hard. Okay, I'm going to stop there and pick this up later. Talk to y'all later. Send me a review out.